let's go ahead and get started with the materials. As always, you're going to need one of my templates printed off on Sulky Stick and Stitch. This one has seen better days, but I'm still going to use it because we don't waste around here. If you've never used Sulky Stick and Stitch, it is a water-soluble paper and it peels off like a sticker, so this side is sticky. It adheres to your garment so you can embroider through it, and then it washes away with water. I like to throw these in the washer on a cold, delicate cycle and it washes right off. I've never had a problem with ink bleed, but you can always throw it in with a color catcher if you start to have that issue. These definitely aren't necessary for this project, but I like to have water-soluble markers laying around. You can also raid your child's cabinet for Crayola washables. I absolutely love using these. These are nice to like mark off middles or mark off any things you want to change about your pattern for some reason, or to mark off the center of your sweater, but definitely not necessary, but they are nice to have. Completely necessary is going to be these large eye embroidery needles, also known as tapestry needles. You want to make sure you get the ones with a sharp point. I will have all of these materials linked down below as always, or if you purchase a kit, you should have everything included. Anyway, I like these because they have a nice large eye so you can get the yarn through it without any issues, and you can still get through the stabilizer without a lot of problems. Next, for this project, especially these smaller 3 trees, you're going to want to weight 4 yarn. For some of these larger designs, like this one, you could possibly get away with a weight 5, but I really like the look of the weight 4, so I'm going to be using weight 4 for all of these. And if you've never used yarn before, you can just look on the back, and there's a little skein here. It says medium or 4 on it. This is a US thing, so I'm not sure in different countries what it may say, but I'm pretty sure most places will have medium 4 on it. But it's going to be about this type of width, so that's what you want to look for when you're at the craft store. I have all my favorites linked down below, but this one is my absolute favorite from Hobby Lobby. Super easy for beginners. And obviously a pair of scissors. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and place our template now. And since this one is pretty abstract, I'm not super concerned about it being in the middle. But if you are, you can always fold these in half to get the center line of it, and then place it on your garment. If you're worried about it being in the center of your actual garment, you can either count the number of rows until you get to the middle, or you can even count from the collar until you get to the middle. I think it's that one right there, and that's where these markers kind of come in handy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, perfect. I like doing that method over the like ruler method, but that's just personal preference. Honestly, most of the time I kind of just eyeball these. I think it looks better. But you are going to want to keep it about an inch away from the top of the collar. I find that just looks best. So we're just going to peel that off, place it, and then press it down nice and firmly. Again, I really like to use the eyeball method. Honestly, I think our eyes are better judges of distance for the most part, but you can always get a ruler out and make it perfect. But let's go ahead and get started. We are going to do 3 different stitches for these. So we're going to start with a back stitch, and then a whipped back stitch, and then a chain stitch for the middle. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have about 6 feet of yarn on my needle here, and I always like to make sure I have this little tail so my needle doesn't pop off. And you can start at the bottom and go all the way up, working your way up. But I'm actually going to start in the middle with this back stitch and then do half of it one way and then half of it up the other way, just to save some time, because pulling through a lot of yarn gets really tedious. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to zoom you guys in. So I'm going to pull that through, and then I'm kind of just going to make sure I have, you can see my messy workstation here really quick. Kind of just like to make sure I have about half on each side. So I have about 3 feet now on this side. We can go ahead and do our back stitch. So to do a back stitch, well, we're starting a little weird, but I just like to go down about 1/4 of an inch away and pull that through. And then again, you're going to come up about 1/4 of an inch away, pull that through. And now to start the actual back stitch part, you're going to come back down through that same hole. Zoom you guys in. Back down through that same hole you just did. And then to save some time, we're just going to start coming back up. Sometimes you get like some weird pockets you can't get through, and that's a weird pocket. I know what it is. You're just kind of going through too much yarn, and then pull that through. Cool. Then you're just going to keep repeating this process, going down and coming up along the line. Try not to pull this one too tight because it can get a little like lost in the knit garment. And you're just going to keep repeating that process all the way around. Okay, I'm really disappointed in myself, but I ran out of yarn. I just know I'm not going to make it back all the way with this piece of yarn. So if you ever do that, you can just stick your yarn down, especially for backstitch, pull it through, and then get your new piece of yarn on. And just kind of start back up where you left off. And then on the back, you'll tie these pieces off with a triple knot. I'll show you at the end what that looks like. But then you can just keep embroidering until you get here. Okay, and the same thing, once you finish off, you can just push your needle down through the last one, pull it all the way through. And then on the back, you can either tie these off, or I like to do a whipped back stitch on the back, which means I'm just going to go like this. And I'm just going to do that a few times until I feel like the yarn is secure. It's usually about 2 inches. If you don't have 2 inches of space, like here, I'm going to come up on this piece of yarn, then you can kind of just do it to the next piece of yarn and tie it off, which is what I'm going to do here. But the rest of them, I'm going to just do a whipped back stitch about 2 inches. But since I wasn't able to make it all the way to 2 inches, I will tie this piece off and then cut off the excess. There you have it. I'm going to finish off the rest of this and then I'll come back and do the whipped back stitch on this piece. Okay, we have officially finished our back stitch, so we're going to do whipped back stitch now. And I totally just realized I missed a loop. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, can't fix it now, so that's fine. I don't think it looks too bad. We're actually going to do red here to try to mimic the effects of a candy cane. And since I wasn't able to get through this whole thing with 6 feet of yarn, I'm going to try 8 feet of yarn so I don't run into that issue again. And this time we're going to do a whipped back stitch. So this is also the stitch I did on this tree. So you could do like different stitches or all the same stitches on each tree. I'm just going to show you one of each stitch so that you know how to stitch all of these. So I'm going to do a whip back stitch here and then probably a back stitch and a chain stitch here, but I'm just going to show you it both here on this tree. So to do that, we are going to start down here at the bottom, or you could start in the middle again. I kind of just wanted to show you both ways, but I'm going to start down here on the bottom. I'm going to bring you guys in a little closer. I'm going to pull that all the way through and leave about just a little bit of a tail on the back to tie off with later. I like to hold that with my non-dominant hand, and then using the eye of my needle, I'm going to start weaving it under that back stitch. This is why I say I like to start in the middle so I don't have to do this annoying thing with the yarn every time. But we're just going to keep weaving. I like to go the same direction so it looks like a twisted candy cane. And once you get to any crossover sections, just grab the one piece. So I'm just grabbing that top piece. And then I'm going to do this all the way around, and I'll just show you how to handle these kind of under pieces. So let me get to that piece. Oh my gosh, this is looking so cool already. Okay, so once you get to that section, I'm actually just going to go under both pieces now and pull that through and then continue as such. It really doesn't matter too much. I just kind of want it to look like, I'll show you. See how it looks like this one's on top? Sorry. See how it looks like this one's on top? That way I can kind of continue this trend all the way around so it looks like this one is on top. It just so it looks like it kind of was done in one piece. So I'll show you what it looks like at the end. I'm going to go ahead and finish this and I'll show you when you get back to the top. Okay, and we have officially finished our whipped back stitch. So we can go ahead and stitch it down. I'm just going to stitch it a little above that white piece just because I want to be able to tie off on the back. So I did leave this top section of white. I didn't do the whipped back stitch on the back just because I wanted to tie it off because I was feeling lazy This is just going to my daughter, so that's totally fine. So I'm just going to tie off both these sections, but there you have it. That is the whipped backstitch. And I actually made a few mistakes, so I just want you guys to avoid it. But you see kind of here on the cross sections, I did miss kind of like grabbing one, so it does look like a little weird, but that's kind of where I meant where like I wanted to always kind of just look like it's going in one direction, where like this is going over and then over it, so it looks like a full rope. But either way, I'm very happy with that. I don't think too many people will be looking super close to it. So let's learn how to do the chain stitch next. Okay, I have about 4 feet of yarn on my needle, again leaving that tail so it doesn't pop off right there. And for this tree, I am going to go up with 1 chain stitch, and then I'm going to do each of these little sections like this. So it is going to be a lot of different sections, kind of, that you'll have to like tie off or figure out. So I'm going to show you how to tie off without having to do a whipped backstitch or kind of following it to another trail. So we're going to start here and go all the way up to the top, learning the chain stitch, and I'll show you how I tie these off. So just like the other stitches, we're going to start by coming up through the back of the sweater and pull it most of the way through. Again, leave that tail on the back to tie off with later. And I like to hold it with my non-dominant hand. I'm going to bring you guys in really closely. And to do the chain stitch, you're going to go down through that same hole you just created and then come up about 1/4 of an inch away. Make sure your yarn is behind your needle so that when you pull it through, you get this nice little loop. Then again, we're going to go down through that same hole. Make sure that you're in that loop. That way when you pull your needle up outside of the hoop, the loop, sorry, you get these like interconnected chain stitches. Now don't pull these too tight or you're going to start to create puckering and it won't look super cute. But you're just going to do this process all the way up to the top of the tree, and then I'll show you how to tie it off. Again, don't pull too tight. I kind of like that like loose look where you get the center showing. So I've stitched my chain stitch all the way up to the top, and I'm just going to poke it down through that top section and bring it all the way through. And this is also what you'll do if you plan on doing these zigzag trees. So once I get to the end of a section, I'll stitch it down. Do you see that one little stitch there? Right there. And then I'll come back up through in the chain stitch. So for example, to go back down, I'm going to come up through this one and go back down. And if you're like repeating this with a new fresh piece of yarn, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to come up through the middle. Sometimes it's a little hard. You want to make sure that you're right in the center of that chain stitch and then come down on the other end. Cute. Now you can totally keep doing this with your piece of yarn where you kind of like go in the back, navigate your yarn into the center, and then do the other length of the tree. But if you don't have enough yarn to do that, I think I have enough to do the other section, so let's just do it really quick. You'd go like that and then finish off that section, but I'm going to come back once I'm done and show you how I'll tie it off. Okay, but there you have it, a little arrow. Since I don't have, again, I'm not going to have enough space to do a whipped back stitch, so I'm just going to take it through one of these stitches, and then I'm going to tie a knot, and then I'm going to keep doing that process. I go under, kind of tie a knot, and I'm going to tie one knot on top of that, but just like when you're tying a present, I put my needle down, kind of like your finger, and pull, 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 and then that's secure, and then I can cut that off. So that's how you would tie it off if you don't have like another piece of yarn to tie off with. Make sure you tie at least 3 knots though to keep it secure. There you have it. I'm going to do the rest of these. So again, coming up here and going out on both of these just so they kind of go the same way. And then I'm going to go do this one in just a simple back stitch, and then I'm going to come back and show you kind of how we're going to decorate the other two so they match. Okay, I finished off all of my trees and I started to add some little baubles. So I'm going to show you how I did these. So we're going to start with these tiny little hearts here. I'm going to add one more green one. So I have about 2 feet of yarn here on my needle. It's not much. We're just going to do two like lazy daisy stitches if you've ever done those. I'm going to try to add one up here. And I'm just going to come up. I found if I put it like in the middle of the tree branch, it looks a little better. And one trick here is I'm actually going to like stretch out my yarn to kind of thin it out. We're just going to go down in that same hole we just created and then come up really, really close. So this is kind of like a detached chain stitch. So I'm creating that little loop just like I did with my chain stitch. But I'm just going to tie it off immediately. And then coming up through the same exact hole in the bottom, we're just going to do another detached chain stitch, kind of like 90 degrees away. Again, I'm doing really, really small chain stitches here. Pull that through, push it down. Sorry, it's really hard to film these, they're so small. And then kind of just like manipulate it so it looks a little bit more like a heart. And then you can just tie off each individual heart on the back with a triple knot. Might look a little crazy on the back, but you know what? Sometimes embroidery is just between you and the wearer. A lot of people say like, oh, doesn't that bother your child's skin? I'm like, no, it's really soft yarn, but I always put my daughters in these with like a t-shirt underneath, just in case it does bother them. So that's how I did these. It's also how I did this bow here. If you've never seen my bow tutorial, this is just 2 of these detached chain stitches and then just like a straight stitch. So I'm just coming up and going back down and then just another straight stitch over it. It's fairly simple. I have a bunch of tutorials on that bow, but I am going to show you how I did these kind of like faux French knots over here. And I have white on a needle, so let's just do another white one maybe right here. You really don't need much yarn for this. And you're just going to come up really, really close to the branch. Leave that that tail in the back to tie off with later. Oh, this is really not a lot of yarn. You're just going to tie one knot, and then just tie a second knot right on top until you get this nice little bobble. And then you're just going to stitch it back down in a different hole. Make sure it's not going down in the same hole. Do you see how I'm in a different hole? If you go in the same hole, you can kind of risk like pulling the knot all the way through the back. And then you're just going to pull both ends until it's nice and taut. Then again, tie off each and every single one with a triple knot. I know, it's going to look a little crazy. But again, these are kind of just like a fun, festive one. But there you have it, a little bobble. You can add as many or as little as you want. You don't have to add any of these. I was just kind of having fun and I wanted to add a little something different. So I think this is super, super, super cute. There are some in here that have little stars and little bows. So I'm going to go over how to do these next. To do the star, I have about 3 feet of yarn here on my needle, and I'm just going to do a woven star stitch. So I do have other tutorials on how to do a filled in star, but I really love this stitch for like a rustic tree vibe, and I feel like this style really gives that. So we're going to start coming through one of the star points, and we're going to go down through the top of our star, and I'm going to put a little diagram up here, hopefully. And then we're just going to come up through the next point and come back down at the top. And I'm just going to start saving some time here by coming back up through the next position. And you don't have to do anything here, so I'm going to go down through this next position. Okay, so those first 3, honestly, you don't have to do anything. It's for these next 2 you do. So for this one, when you're coming from the right over to the left, you're going to go over this first stitch and then go under that second one. So let me zoom you in here. So I'm going, there's a little bit of dog hair. I'm so sorry. You know what? Whatever. You're going to come over this one and then under this second stitch. So refer to my little guide here in the top right and then stitch that down. And then this last one, we're going to come up through the bottom And then again, it's also kind of easy to see here. Since this one is going under, we're going to go over here and then under this one. That way, each and every strand kind of goes over and under one, hence the like woven wheel status of that. You can keep going and do as many layers as you want, honestly, going inward, but I really like the single layer look of this. I think it looks like kind of just like a rusticy cute star. So I'm going to leave that as is. I think it looks really sweet like that. And we're going to tie that off with a triple knot on the back, just like we have been. There you go. You just embroidered a cute star. Okay, last but certainly not least, we are going to embroider a bow. And I have about maybe 2 feet of yarn here. Honestly, we don't need a lot. So all we're going to do is we're going to chain stitch up one leg, come around the back, and then go down, and then again chain stitch up this leg, come around the back, and then go down. So if you've already done the chain stitch, that's exactly what we're going to do, but we're going to start here, do one, finish it off, do one, do the other, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the middle. So let's start here on the left side, and this may be a little hard to see because you might have chain stitch over it, but it is like right here on your tree. So I'm just going to show you kind of how you would go over that. So anytime you're kind of crossing over a chain stitch, and let me bring you in a little closer, I like to go in the middle of one of those chain stitches. And it's a little hard to pull through, but trust me, it is worth it because that way it doesn't look like it's like reaching across. It looks like it's intentional. So always go in the middle of the chain stitch if you're going over it. And then again, I'm going to continue this chain stitch all the way up and around, all the way up and around, and then I'm going to finish in the middle, and then I'm going to do the same exact thing where I'm going to come up, go around, and then finish it off in the middle, and then I'll show you how to completely finish the bow. So just showing you how I finished off this first one, I'm kind of just going to go down the middle and pull that through. Don't worry about tying off these ends right now. We're going to tie them off in a little bit. I'm just going to pull that through, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing again and then finish it off in the middle. So once we have finished this, you'll notice that our needle is kind of right on the middle of our bow. So I'm going to do a few stitches to kind of like tie off the center to make it look like that little bow thing. So I'm going to come up here through the top, and I'm going to do 3 stitches. Oh no. Oh no. It's a good thing. You could just unstitch it, but we're just going to undo this. Little hack there. So we're just going to come down and do like 3 stitches. So I'm just going to come down through there and do like 3 stitches like that, where I'm just kind of going over that section to make it look like a real bow. Give it some depth. I would try to do these in like one section, but there's a lot of yarn here, so it may be hard to pull through. Maybe 1 or 2 more. First part is just figuring out where to place these. See what I'm doing there? Just kind of like, they're called like straight stitches. Straight stitch, satin stitch, just until you're like satisfied with it. Maybe 1 more here on the right side. This yarn is coming up orange on screen, but I promise it's like this really pretty muted mauvey pinky color. Super pretty for Christmas. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. And then on the back, you're going to have a lot of yarn. So what I like to do is I like to tie off these 2 in the middle. And then I'm going to thread my needle on here and bring it all the way over here and then tie it off there. So that's how I'm going to tie off this bow, but that's how you do it. Oh my gosh, how cute is that? These also, I don't think I mentioned them at the beginning. These are a cute little overall brand I got from Arbor Cove. And I'll have a discount code down below because these are super nice, 100% organic cotton. I don't know how she was able to get OECO certified organic cotton. I find it so hard to do that. And then these sweaters are obviously my brand. They are 100% cotton, super nice sweaters as well. But we have done 2 designs on there. So you should have everything you need now to go do any of these designs. But once you have finished, you're going to throw these in the washer on a cold, delicate cycle. Come back here, lay them out flat to dry, okay? And just don't touch them. Don't put them in the dryer, don't touch them, just let them dry. If they are ever a little like crunchy after doing that, put them back in the washer. I promise you it's the sulky stabilizer still on there. If you know it's like 100% out and they're still just like a little iffy, you can throw them in for a little bit in the dryer for like maybe 5 minutes of tumbling just to fluff them back up. But I've never had that issue. I've just noticed some other people complaining about it. So let's go do this and then we can finish off this video. But thank you guys so much for being here with me. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me embroidering. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like it and subscribe down below. It really helps me out. But if you have any questions, please leave them down below as well, and I would be happy to answer them. As always, happy stitching, Merry Christmas, and have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.